Okay, so if you know who I am, or if you ever watched my streams from either when I was on Xbox to when I switched over to PC recently, you would know that I'm not a gamer.
Maybe a little
Yeah,
water,
no,
man.
that 100%.
Defuse, defuse,
Tap, tap, tap,
defuse.
Liam!
Why'd you scream?
He whipped a whole man.
I'm more of a player who crutches off straight intel, straight IQ, and I prefer to outsmart a player rather than outgun them. Recently, that's the number one thing I've been trying to focus on. So in this video, I'm going to break down actually my routine in T-Hunt that I'm going to be following for the next maybe 90 days. And you're going to see as my content continues to grow and get better, you're going to notice I'm going to become a better player when it comes to gunfights. So I'm going to break down what I'm actually going to be doing for the next 90 days, every day for 1 hour, maybe 2 hours. So yeah, let's get right into it. Okay, so what I'm going to be starting out playing is actually, since the new update, it just dropped like 2 days ago, a day ago, we're going to go into matchmaking preferences, and I'm actually going to take off house, and I make sure it's on elimination, of course. I'm taking off house because I feel like house is just, I don't know, it's not the same as it once was since the new update. So I'm taking house off, and I'm actually just going to keep coastline on. It's going to be my only map I'm going to be running, of course, on elimination. And what I'm going to be starting to do as my very first warm-up, I'm going to start doing on my first run. I never play with audio, by the way. I usually just play with music. I just find that it's better. It's more relaxing. But I'm just going to push in, and I'm just going to take every gunfight possible. What that's doing is actually, it's warming up my eyes, and it's just warming up my hands, because I haven't played Siege in like since yesterday. And to be honest, I know when I first get on the game, I just feel automatically weird. My sense feels weird, and it takes me a few like T-hunts just to overall warm up. Now, when you're playing T-hunts, your number one goal should be to warm up, not, you know, win the T-hunt. I don't know. That's why I don't see the point in doing hostage or like bomb or any of that. It's just a pain in the ass. Elimination just gets the job done. You get your kills and whatnot. Now, the only thing that's really weird about switching from house to coastline is I don't know the spawns. And I don't know the spawns of the C4s. And sometimes when I actually play T-Hunt on coastline, I'm actually confused because so many of these stupid terrorists run like shields. So yeah, but don't worry about your first T-Hunt, because it is quite awkward, and the game feels a little sluggy when you first get on. So that's just the whole point. I do this a few times. I'm gonna be doing it probably 2 or 3 times until my hands and my goddamn C4s. Once my hands and my body actually like relegate what I'm actually playing. Now the next thing I'll actually be doing is I'll be picking it up. Doesn't really matter what op you really choose, but if you're trying to get better or learn recoil with a certain operator, like for example when it comes to Habana, I know the bearing 9 is something that I struggle with, and it's something I had to work on. Same with SMG 11 when I switched to PC. But you can pick whatever op you want. I'm gonna pick Buck because I'm still trying to master his recoil and just master like his gunplay. But in the next thing I'll actually be doing is, and this will be focusing on crosshair placement and trying to get down on the headshots. So what I'll be doing is I will not be un-ADSing, only to reload. And if I die, I die. What this is doing is this is helping you practice good crosshair placement, which is good for like scanning rooms, and you're gonna win a lot more gunfights. Especially for console players, they tend to aim very low because everybody like crouches around, and a lot of them don't even notice until they come to PC or until somebody says anything. Because I remember I was on console, I didn't think of that. So I'll be not ADSing. If I die, I die. We'll try this a few times, and it's gonna help me with tracking overall. Now, as you can tell, my tracking is god awful right now. It's probably a mixture of me just still trying to warm up and me just being garbage. But it's something that I've realized that I need to work on and get better. And that's the number one thing. If you're having an issue as a player when it comes to gun skill, you need to focus on that and just like practice it head on. Now, when it comes down to crosshair placements, that's something that so many players in like gold and low plat struggle with, is just pure crosshair placement. They're awful with it. They lose so many gunfights because they're aiming at the toes, and it's probably the #1 tip I actually give players when I actually see their gameplay. It's something I struggle with, and sometimes I still struggle with, but awareness is the start of getting better at something, so that's very important. Now, I'm going for basically headshots only, and I don't care how long this takes me, because if I keep losing, I'm going to keep retrying the T-Hunt. As you can see, I'm having a hard time here, but I'm not really worried. If I die, I die. It's really whatever. You keep practicing stuff like this, and you'll get better at tracking and overall just flicking, instead of having to un-ADS like... I noticed with T-Hunts, that's really good. It's also a very good way to determine your sensitivity. Maybe it's too fast, maybe it's too slow. But what this overall is helping me do is just helping me with tracking. Especially, like, I don't know why, every time I get on the game, my eyes feel very weird. And I just seem like I'm having a hard time even adjusting to gunfights. And I end up losing a lot. Yeah, it doesn't matter how many times you fail. It's just all about practice at that point. You know, as you can see, I'm awful right now. And as I get better in time, you know, it'll be good. So the next thing I'll actually be practicing is kind of the same thing, except it's going to be only one taps. What this is going to be doing is it's going to practice 1, good crosshair placement, 2, patience, because a lot of players, they seem to panic a lot when they get into gunfights, and they just end up spraying their whole mag. So I'm putting my gun on 1 shot only, and I'm going to be just ADSing. The only time I can un-ADS is if I have to reload. And what this also helps with is a lot of players tend to just run around way too much. Like, they're sprinting way too much. And especially how they nerfed the ADS last season. Or, like, yeah, last season. It's a lot slower now when you're in the sprint animation. So it's a good mental practice to stop sprinting like that. Now, even if you potato or whatever, like, you got to get used to doing stuff like this. Because you're going to end up panicking, and, you know, that's just, it's not good. You lose a lot of gunfights from panicking and freaking out, and, like, just overthinking. That's another issue I see with a lot of players, is they're overthinking way too much when it comes to gunfights. Like, sometimes you do just got to be brain dead. But this teaches a lot of patience, at least for me, because I know I freak out sometimes, and those hard to hit shots, I end up losing easy gunfights too, to this. As you can see, I'm showing you raw gameplay of me being complete dog meat. But you know why? Because this is something new to me. Like I said, I'm not an aimer, I'm more of a brainer. But I want to become like a more balanced and a better player when it comes to gunfights. Okay, next thing I actually want to go on about is actually repel play. Now, if you're not interested in this and you think that you have repelling down pack, then just skip on over, go into the timestamps below. But this is really just to help players that struggle when they repel, and it's like a lot of people sway away from that because they're scared about you know, getting slammed, and they think they're just dog meat. But it's something in the game that you need to master to become like a way better player, because there's situations like I get most of my kills sometimes just off of just repelling. But the first advice I want to give you is the window, it's not broken. Okay, now it's broken because of terrorists. But since the glass wasn't broken, there's no sound cue of the repel. So you can catch people off guard with like bullet holes, for example. You can tap once, and it's better if you have ACOG, but it's usually easy kills if you see this color. But yeah, what this does is, you know, it's like riding a bike. You know, you have to get used to it. You have to get down packed the feeling of it. You know, repelling upside down, being inverted. A lot of players struggle with this, and it's mostly in like the gold tier. But it's something you gotta do. It's kind of like the same with vertical play. And like vertical play, it's a little bit harder to really practice without doing it in game because of the way T-Hunt is set up, sadly. But you could also practice it though and get fluent with it. As long as you have like map knowledge, like that's just half of vertical play at that point. What you need to realize and understand is perspective in this game. Because last year, I want to say, they changed the way the camera is. It's no longer from like the top of your head, which changed the way that like, even leaning was. It used to be a lot snappier, but they put it to where I think your gun is, I want to say. or where your sight is, or your eyes, or your character model's eyes. That's what I think it is. And you have to understand when you're peeking, for example, like this. See how I can't see the terrorist and he's shooting at me? Like, that's perspective at its peak. You have to understand the way you're peeking and the way that your body's, like, showed. Like, right here, I'm getting shot at. Do you see that? I don't see the op. He sees me completely. In the kill cam, you're going to see he's going to be completely seeing me, or he's going to be completely seeing a side of my body that I'm not seeing him. I was not seeing him the whole time, but he saw, like, half my head. So you have to try to realize that perspective sometimes just isn't on your side, but you have to educate yourself about perspective. Now, I'm pretty sure there's a YouTube video that I'm going to look for, and I'll drop it in the description if you're actually curious about how the mechanic actually works. But yeah. Okay, next thing I'm going to be doing is just to practice with a gun that I haven't yet mastered, and it's going to be SMG-11. I suggest you pick whatever operator. For example, if you have struggled with Buck's ACOG, or, you know, maybe Thermite angle grip with Thermite, or, you know, the AK-12, you know, because it bounces like a stripper's butt. Really determines on you. What I'll be doing is I won't be putting on one tap. I'll be just trying to get straight headshots. And, you know, it's kind of hard to have like an actual set schedule because there's only a minimum amount of things that you can do in T-Hunt, but you got to get creative. And I know it does get boring, but it's got to keep practicing. Like, within 90 days, I want to become a very good mechanical player and have a decent shot. I've tried a whole bunch of different reses, a different sense, and like I've been tweaking my sense, but I've been trying to stay with the current sense that I'm at. But I noticed that also mood plays a big part in things. Like, if I feel crappy mentally and even physically, I'll play awful. If I'm in a good mood and, you know, I'm even around good people, I'll play decent. It's an anxiety factor. This game is half mental and half understanding and, you know, feeling of game, if that makes sense. But that's what I like to do. If you're going for straight body shots, and that just means you're panicking, or your crosshair placement is just awful. I'm trying to get really fluent with my movement and fluent with my shot. Remember to try to keep a mental note that you're not sprinting way too much, because you'll lose so many encounters in game if you're actually just sprinting. Because terrorists, even though they do like have like wall hacks, because, you know, they're bots, real people aren't gonna react like they do. It's not like these terrorists are playing off like pure sound like normal players are. So the next thing I'm gonna be actually trying to practice is with pistols. Now, if you seen any time I've used a pistol, I have the worst trigger finger, probably like in the game. It is slow, and I tend to even freak out and panic when I use it. So it's something that I personally want to work on. So what I'm going to be doing is I'll be going around the map, just trying to only get headshots with the pistol, kind of like what I did with the SMG-11. But you see how fat the iron sights are on pistols? That's my biggest issue. That's why I freak out so much. And, you know, you're kind of thinking that, oh, I have the slowest trigger finger, so it's kind of hard scanning the room and trying to actually get kills. But the more that you practice with a weapon, like for example a pistol, even if it's a great pistol, is you just got to get used to it, man. And it's something that I lacked as a player, for example, is just not mastering like weapons, especially since I switched to PC. Like, console was a little easier because it was like, you know, I played it for so long, and it was easy just to control like recoil, because I was used to everything. Like, I mastered Buck's recoil, but now like I'm in a whole new playing field. Especially I'm on a mouse now instead of a controller, which theoretically it should be easier to control recoil since I'm on a mouse. But it's just a weird adjustment altogether. But just like what I did earlier on in the video, is what this is doing is it's practicing, of course, flicks without un-ADSing and crosshair placement and trying to scan a room. And it's okay if you mess up like I am, because, you know, that's how you learn. But in a game like Siege, where it's a one-shot headshot game, that's what your main focus should be really about. It's just proper crosshair placement and always getting that headshot, because you know you're saving a lot more ammo in your clip, which allows you to get more kills, and it's a lot cleaner and a lot faster than, of course, just spraying a whole mag into somebody's body, and then you most likely will lose that gunfight. Okay, so the whole premise of this video was just to break down and try to give some type of structure when it comes to people playing T-Hunt, especially players that are trying to get better, because I believe that even though IQ is definitely like 70% in this game, but you know, you do have to win your ones and you do have to get better mechanically and when it comes to gunfights and practicing recoil control and whatnot. So I hope this video helped in some sense, and I hope it kind of woke you up to some of the awareness that it takes in game, and I hope it educates you when you actually are playing in game. Because if you just keep a mental note, for example, of not sprinting around way too much, or just even crosshair placement, you'll become a way better player. So if you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe. I'll probably be updating how I do after practicing this every day for like the next 90 days, but it'll be probably in like rank clip format, since you can actually see how I'm playing in game instead of me just playing Terrace Hunt. So I stream every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. Link will be in the description. Have a lovely day.